You know, it's just like, it takes a trying to manage it successfully. Burn her out.
Yeah. Morning, County Council. I'll call the meeting to order. If everyone would like to join me, we'll stand and sing the national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Councillor Mackey,
Present.
Councillor McKay,
Here.
Councillor Carlton, Councillor Pringle,
Present.
Councillor McQueen is not present right now. Councillor Nielsen, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Dickert, Councillor Kentner, Councillor Keaveney, Councillor Body Senses Regrets, Councillor Kepke, Councillor Gregg, Warden Milne,
Present.
Councillor Dobreen, Councillor Matrosovs,
Present.
Councillor Bourdignon,
Present.
Councillor Eccles, Councillor Hutchinson.
Present.
We have all members in attendance with the exception of Councillors Body and McQueen.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And before we begin, I want to acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, Six Nations of the Grand River, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples on whose traditional territories we gather and whose ancestors signed treaties with our ancestors. We recognize also the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or declaration of interest related to any item on today's agenda? Not seeing any. If one should arise during the course of the meeting, feel free to declare it at that time. Number 6, adoption of the minutes. We have the county and committee of the whole, council and committee of the whole minutes dated May 11th. Would someone care to move adoption of those minutes? Councillor Eccles, Councillor Gregg, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We have the Long-Term Care Committee of Management meeting minutes from May 9th. Would someone care to move those? Councillor Keaveney and Councillor Patterson. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We have no closed meeting matters. We have one report, which is the Board of Health meeting minutes from March 3rd and March 31st. Dr. Era is joining us. There he is. Welcome, sir. How are you this morning?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Good morning, Council. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. So if you'd like to proceed with a summary of what's been going on at the health unit lately, we'd appreciate that.
Certainly. From the two sets of minutes, Mr. Warden, there are two items, probably the most worthy of highlighting. One of them is the update on COVID, and it was one of the last updates on COVID to the Board of Health as a standing item. In April was a very final one to remove the item as standing item. Obviously, COVID virus continued to circulate in the community, but the levels and the requirement for response are within the capacity similar to many other infectious diseases. So that is a good news to reduce the level of response to it or the urgency of it. The second one is related to water sample drop-off location. And in terms of background of this item, as you know, as many people around the table know, there is a provincial program for testing private well drinking water. And the program is run by Public Health Ontario's provincial program. And historically, there was a number of location in Grey Bruce with drop-off locations to drop off bottles. During the pandemic and as a byproduct of the policies of visitation to the hospitals and other organizations that host these locations, the drop-off locations was limited at some point to only one location in Grey Bruce, which is the health unit. So we worked at the time with the essential services, specifically the grocery stores, where they kindly hosted drop-off locations, around 4 of them. So in Grey Bruce, we operated under 5, but historically we were over 10. So again, there has been spots during the pandemic or after the pandemic. The policies for these organizations continue to exclude drop-off locations. So that resulted in areas in Grey Bruce that don't have optimal access. People have to drive an hour to drop off a location or a sample to a location. So in communication with the Public Health Ontario, we realized that they're not able to expand their program. We involved the Ministry of Health and to be part of the discussion, and we decided to take ownership of this issue and provide a local solution. That is not the norm in the standards for health units, but the Ministry of Health gave us their blessing, and we have been in the past 2 months designing a program to ensure that anybody in Grey Bruce who needs to test water from private well, which is many of us use private wells, can do so by access to a location within a 20-minute drive. And our team has been in communication with the municipalities to ensure the locations are spread out through Grey Bruce. We're waiting on final communication from 4 municipalities to confirm the location, and we're hoping this program will be up and running within a month from now. And I see this as a local solution I see this as turning a challenge to an opportunity and provide a local solution that's usually more responsive to the need of the community. I'll stop there, Mr. Warden, open to questions as always.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Era? Oh, Peter, you have your hand up. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you, and thank you, Dr. Ara. It's encouraging to see that we'll be doing further testing. This came through our municipal council the other day in regards to our area in the town of the Blue Mountains. We do have a significant population on wells. So we look forward to that report. And you said it would be, just to confirm, it would be at least within a 20-minute drive, because we're looking at about 45 minutes from the original list. So is that will be expanded outward geographically?
Sorry, if you can repeat the question. The last part of it was the technology didn't.
I'm sorry, Dr. R. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Just Previously, our residents were saying it would be about a 40 to 45-minute drive for well testing from some of our rural areas. So with this new list, you're saying it will be about, just to confirm, about within 20 minutes drive of all municipalities?
Through you, Mr. Warden, correct. Yes, 20 minutes. We were aiming for 20 to 30, but I am confident the list and the distribution would be within 20. We still, one of the steps is to connect with the courier companies locally and finalize a contract. But the locations themselves are within 20 minutes from almost all municipalities.
Thank you, Dr. Ara. That'd be great help.
It's worth mentioning that and I realize this is not related to Grey County, but the peninsula is a different situation, and they have been actually doing their testing. Historically, we are in communication with them to see if we want to have a hybrid or something that would deliver or improvement on the current situation.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Ara. Any questions, Councillor Kentner? Use your microphone, sir, please.
It came on. There we go. It's not a question of it. Through you, Mr. Warden, I'd just like to thank Dr. Ara for his support of the municipality of Meaford. You may have heard we had a little fire over there, and we had a lot of problems as a result of it. And it was a busy week for Dr. Ara helping us work through that. And I just thank him very much for his support.
Thank you, Ross. Any other questions? Councillor Matrosov, sorry, I didn't see that hand there, but go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through you, the warden, I just wanted to follow up on what Councillor Bordegon had started to discuss. I would just ask that, yes, that we continue, that you continue the direct contact with those of us in the municipalities to confirm. There's a difference between a 20-minute where the crow flies versus 20-minute to actually physically be able to drive to location. I live in an area where it will take me 25 minutes to get to Clarksburg or 30 minutes to get to Thornbury, and Feversham is about the same distance for me. So I want to be very careful that it's not just somebody that's looking at a map of Grey County and just drawing circles and saying that works, because some of our intricate rural road networks do not allow us to go from point B as simply as we could if we could fly it.
Through you, Mr. Warden, we are working off a map. Obviously, we didn't drive these routes because they're not finalized completely, and we're still in communication. Our aim was to do it within 30 minutes, and based on the maps, it seems to be done by 20. I appreciate the feedback from the councillor that the geography or the reality might not be aligning with maps. And I much rather under promise and over deliver instead of the opposite. So I'll go back to the initial 20 to 30 minutes, our goal, but hopefully it's going to be less than 20.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Councillor DeBrun.
Thank you, through you, Warden, and thank you, Dr. Ara. You're estimating that you'll have these locations finalized in about a month, and they'll be posted on the website, I'm guessing?
Through you, Mr. Chair, definitely they will be posted on site. We will be communicating about the importance of the testing and the availability of it through different channels. We already have an interview with Rogers TV, and we have different lined up on the subject, but we have different channels that we need to ensure that the people who are using the service would know about it. It's worth mentioning, it's not just a location. There are many logistics. There should be fridges ordered and located in the specific location. The information brochures or the different ways to deliver on answering questions to the public all need to be aligned, and we have been very well served by municipal staff that are very responsive in all municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Ara, looking into the future, do you have any line of sight as to where the ask regarding the budget might be to Grey County in the next budget cycle?
What we know from the Ministry of Health verbally, that the budget approvals will come through by mid-August. So that's probably the earliest we can know. And in all cases, the budget that we put forward is not much different from previous budgets. There is a bit more increase. In the past few years, we did not ask for increase, but obviously with the inflation, there has been the budget is built around 2.5%, which is quite manageable considering the size of our budget.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Councillor Raffles.
Thank you, and through you, sir, to Dr. Ara. We're talking about water testing, and did I miss that part? We're doing, the health unit for a number of years has done some water testing on different swimming areas, whether it be Flesherton Pond and Grey Highlands and whatnot. Will that be continuing on? Sauble Beach and some of the other places will be doing that again this year. And is it in conjunction with some of the conservation authorities that do testing as well too?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this type of testing has been going on, and we adjust based on the need and the changes. For example, the recent change in the authority over the Sauble Beach between the municipality and the First Nation again require us to change our ability to test, since it's not under a municipal jurisdiction. But we have been communicating with any municipality related to testing, whether it is local. For example, the Saugeen First Nations have decided to do their own testing. They used to do it on the south part of that beach, and they continue to do it in the north. We have offered support, but obviously they have the capacity, which is great. Our goal always to support Indigenous communities to build their capacity. In this case, it has already been there. And the beaches that we have been testing historically, we continue to test, Mr. Warden.
Thank you, sir. Okay. All right. I'll call the question to approve the minute. Oh, apparently we need a mover and second before we can vote on something. It's funny how that works. Councillor Pringle and Councillor McKay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. See, that works a lot better if you have a mover and seconder, doesn't it? Yeah. Bylaws. We have one bylaw there. It's to the bylaw be introduced and taken first and second to amend bylaw to adopt a policy with respect to a code of conduct for Grey County Council. Would someone care to move that, please? Councillor Carleton and Councillor DeBreen. Thank you. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. News and celebrations. Anybody have anything they'd like to tell us about? Councillor Keaveney, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and good morning, everyone. Councillor Kentner mentioned that we had quite a fire in Meaford 2 weeks ago today, and I just wanted to express our appreciation to the fire departments that came to our aid, Town of Blue Mountains and Grey Highlands in particular. And Chatsworth, I know, was on standby to help if needed. And we're very grateful for that support and for that of the county as well. We had 60 firefighters fighting that blaze, and it was quite devastating for the community, but it was contained. So we're grateful for that, and no one was hurt. A lot of cars were lost, but that's okay. They can be replaced. And Johnny B's will be and is already open at a new location, 245690 on the 22nd Side Road. So that's a temporary spot for them until they can rebuild, but the site is almost remediated now. It's a big job, but they're trying to get it done while we have good weather. So that is well underway. And again, I just want to thank everybody who came to our aid 2 weeks ago when we had that really massive fire. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keaveney. And that's what we do in Grey County. Not burn stuff. come to people's help. Just saying. Any other news or celebrations? Counselor Nielsen.
I'll stand for this one for the first time, Warden, if that's okay. I just want to recognize that on our May 17th council meeting, Great Highlands Council and our warden honored Councillor McQueen here at the table, but Mayor McQueen at our table for 25 years of municipal government service. It is something that is pretty remarkable. I think I recognize that there's a few members of the table that might have joined this prestigious club. It is something to behold because we start off in this municipal government, we run for politics, we think we're going to be excited. Then we realize how crazy we all are and how the residents will tell us how insane we are. So to run again and again and again on the Osprey Council, the Great Highlands Council, Great County Council, to be warden of Great County, not to mention a number of numerous boards and organizations, Mayor McQueen to me has been on. I just wanted to honor him and say congratulations, sir.
Well done, and congratulations, Councillor McQueen. Councillor McKay.
Yeah, it's just stating, I don't know if it's good news or celebration, but I'll be attending my first directors meeting at Good Roads for 3 days down in London. And I look forward to any comments that I could take down to Good Roads. I know one of them is concern over some of our conferences we've gone to. There's very little talk on rural communities, and that happened at the last meeting. So I'm going to be bringing that one forward. I am on research and productivity development and education and training. So if you have any comments that you want me to take down, maybe at lunch or whatever, I can jot them down and take them down to Good Roads and see what I can do. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Did I see a hand on this side? No? Councillor Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Last Friday, I had the pleasure of attending a dedication ceremony at Cobble Beach, where they have installed 33 plaques outlining the history of there, talking about the nature and everything else along 14 kilometers of trails that run through Cobble Beach that are available for anyone to go and walk on them. And there's also the Enchanted Forest out there for little children to go to. So it was quite a wonderful dedication. They had worked with Anthony Shigano from Cape Croker, who helped with all the history there. So it's really quite interesting. So I would encourage everybody to go out and take part there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you. And through you, Warden, not to brag, but I was the first person to rise to the challenge by the warden at his warden's breakfast to go build and go fly a kite. You can view my creation at flyhopeful.ca under the Mayor's Challenge tab. I now pass the baton to all of my county councillor friends at the Horseshoe and my Southgate councillors to go fly a kite.
Thank you for that reminder. Councillor McQueen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Warden. I just thought you were just telling us to bugger off. Anyway, yes, we have to get to that 80 days. I think I saw something on the, I want to just thank my deputy mayor for recognizing my 25 years of service. But from saying that, I just want to make a couple notes. We had a very successful Ram Rodeo a weekend or so ago, the 26, 27, 27, 28, I guess it was. We oversubscribed. You couldn't get any better weather. I mean, you couldn't get any better. So there was lots of bronco riding and bull riding and people flying through the air. And so everybody survived. So it was a very successful weekend, and we haven't got the tally up yet, but I know we had over $52,000 in sponsorship. So that's pretty amazing. And that comes from our local businesses that came out and supported it. So again, that's we wouldn't have a successful event if we didn't have businesses stepping up to the plate, which we all support in Grey County as well. We did recognize Senior of the Year yesterday at our council. And that was Stuart Halliday, who was warden in 2018 here, served a term here in county council, and was surprised. And I saw through you had recognized somebody in your municipality as well. I saw that on Facebook. So again, that was an interesting and nice opportunity to recognize a senior that has, done a great amount of work. Just, I apologize, Mr. Warden, I'm a few minutes late this morning. I ran into our lovely construction and on Gray Road 18, which they're out there doing their work, which they're good. And this is the time for construction. So anyway, thank you, Mr. Warden.
Thank you. Councillor Bordignon, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you. And in regards to good news, last weekend we had the second annual Blue Mountains International Film Festival, which almost doubled the attendance that we had for the first year. We received people from all over the world, saw many international and Canadian films, and we welcomed a lot of film producers, location scouts into not only the Blue Mountains, but into Grey County to take a look at our beautiful countryside for future possible filming locations. And it was just some great films and a lot of camaraderie in that aspect, just to showcase the area. So I just wanted to highlight that film festival. The second one was a great success.
Thank you, sir. I will, I know Kim has an item here, but I just wanted to mention that I was at the at Grey Roots. I think, I forget what day that was now. It was last weekend, I think. There are 7 artistic panels that have been created by a gentleman by the name of Niall. I'll get this wrong, but McGeezai, I think, is how you pronounce his last name. He's originally from the Cape. He lives in Toronto now. He's an artist, First Nations artist, Aboriginal. And the panels depict the story of what the treaties have done and are continue to do, the impacts they have on First Nations and Indigenous people in our area and indeed in our country. And it was a very moving experience. And I encourage everyone to go down and have a look at those panels at Grey Roots. They're very interesting. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of interpretation there. And I'm sure everyone can take something away from those panels and that story. So I was very happy to be invited to that event. And I look forward to more great things from Grey Roots. They do a tremendous job down there. Kim, you have something.
Good morning, Council. Earlier this week, the Municipal Information Systems Association held their annual conference at Blue Mountain Resort. Start off by saying how fortunate we are to have Blue Mountain Resort as a place that can host these conferences. It's a wonderful thing to be able to bring so many delegates from far and wide into our community. But the special thing that I wanted to note was that MISA offers Excellence in Municipal Systems Awards, and our IT team was recognized with an award for managed security services. So I think it's a wonderful credit to Jody and Evan and the whole team in IT for the work that they do for us, and to this council for your support to make sure that we're making the right decisions to keep everyone safe with technology. So thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing any? Oh, Savannah, please.
Thank you so much. Sorry, we have a little video to share with you. Rob's going to help me out here. But in the last 2 weeks, the Intelligent Community Forum has released the very first video in their Competitive Advantage series, and it features us in Grey County, which is really exciting. So it's a lengthy video. It's 24 minutes long, so I'm not going to show you the whole thing. We're just going to show you 2 minutes right now, but direct you to a page, and we will send you the link after the video is over so that you can watch the whole video if you'd like. ICF is currently circulating it through their global network around the world, which is really exciting for us to be able to tell our story. And it helps on our road to ICF and the recognition that we are doing to realize what the county is achieving and what all of our member municipalities and businesses are achieving together. So as you'll remember, in February, we were named to the top 21 communities, and on June 20th, we will find out if we make the top 7. So fingers crossed, we will be recognized as top 7, but either way, I'm going to be coming back to you next month with a fulsome report to talk about some of the pieces that we used through this award cycle to be recognized, because it's a really good story, and I'm just so impressed with what everybody is doing across Grey County. So we want to be able to bring that back for you. So Rob's going to help me with a quick 2-minute video here. And then we will send you the link after council so you can watch the whole thing if you would like.
So now you know about Grey County, about its history, its agriculture, its manufacturing, its innovation, its clean energy industry. But when we asked Savannah what she wanted people to remember about Grey County, she didn't talk about what they've done. She talked about what's still to come and how they're going to work as a team to make it happen.
We have what we call Team Grey, and that means that you have all of the departments in Grey County. It doesn't mean just the Economic Development, Tourism, Culture Department. It is transportation, it is planning, it is everybody rowing in the same direction. And then it's the same with our member municipalities. So we are always working directly with our member municipalities because we need their knowledge and insight and their kind of ears and boots on the ground to be able to tell us what's going on and build those relationships and those meaningful connections locally. But to have those connections and to not have that regional perspective, it really misses something. So we realized that a long time ago, and we've spent years honing that. And I think we're in a really good place where we have excellent regional collaboration, and then we can take that Team Grey and we go beyond our borders. So we're working with our neighboring counties. We're working with all of Southwestern Ontario because we know that it's the only way to get things done. I think it's important that we give credit to ICF and the vision that they had for what this organization would do, because it has really made a world of difference. We look at things through a different lens, and we look at things and how we bring that joy to our community and how we build that place where people really want to be. And it's only by being on the ground and working with our businesses and our residents and our municipalities and every stakeholder at every level, we all have to come together to build that community. And it gives us such an amazing opportunity to build community pride, to celebrate all of the people who make Grey County such an amazing place, because we really are amazing and wonderful because of the people that we have here and the things that they are accomplishing and the visions and the love that they have for this area. So I think it's so important that all communities should be looking at ICF, and we're really excited to be able to look at it again in the future and to use it as a foundation for our document. So as we develop our master plan and we develop our next strategies, that will be a central piece of it because it really gives the whole picture. It looks at the whole life around what it is to be a resident and a business, and that is where economic development needs to be at the heart.
Well done, Savannah. And I've had the chance to look at the full video, and it's boy, your heart just grows two sizes. It's as the Grinch has said, it really does make you feel good to be a part of Grey County. Okay, I take a motion to adjourn the council meeting of our Councillor Mackey and Councillor DeBreen. All those in favor? That is carried. Well, now I'll just take a minute to change over to our committee of the whole meeting. I got the thumbs up from Rob, so we are live, and I'll call the meeting to order. Committee of the whole, is there any declaration of interest related to any item on today's agenda? Not seeing any. If one should arise, declare it. Feel free to declare it. Any business arising from the minutes? Not seeing any. We have a delegation today we have two esteemed members from BDO here today. We have Vicki Watson and we have Tracy Smith. Welcome, ladies. And they're going to be presenting the 2022 audited financial statements. Maybe Mary Lou, do you want to introduce our delegation?
Sure, I think you already did. And as stated, the people that you mentioned are already here. So we're happy to have Tracy, who's a partner with BDO, and Vicki here today to present the 2022 audited financials.
So that just confirms that I did get it right. So welcome.
You did, and you'll need the motion too.
Yes, we do. We have a motion here and I'll read it. Moved that the financial statements for the year ending December 31, 2022 be received, and that the treasurer hereby authorized to approve and sign the financial statements, and that staff be authorized to proceed prior to county council approval as per section 26.6B of the procedural bylaw. Someone care to move? Councillor Hutchison, Councillor Deckard. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the council for inviting us here this morning. It's really nice to be back in person to meet with everyone. Vicky's going to do the technology here, so I'm too old for that. I'd like to thank Mary Lou and Sue and their team for their assistance during the audit. We appreciate their support, and they provide the support they provide. And we want to recognize the completeness and quality of the working papers that they provide to help us make the audit go efficiently. As your auditor, we have the responsibility to communicate with those charged with governance on an annual basis, which is you. The council, many of these items are similar every year, and they are similar from municipality to municipality. So I apologize for those of you that get to see me a couple of times a year. Most of this message is the same. Because the communication is dictated by the accounting standards on what we have to communicate. So I'm just going to provide just a brief summary of that communication, and then Vicky will provide a high-level overview of the actual numbers in the financial statements. We're happy to take any questions as we go along. So please just wave, and we will stop and address those issues as they come up. The executive summary on page 3 in the package that's in your council package just goes through the financial statements are in draft, and you have a motion to approve that financial statements, and at that time we would be able to release the final once we have a signed representation, and we also have to do subsequent event work up until the date of your approval. On an annual basis, we're required to confirm that BDO is independent of the county. And so we do confirm. Materiality for the year was $4.5 million. That's based on 3% of average revenues, which is standard for public sector entities. Auditing standards also require that we communicate on an annual basis a discussion on the responsibilities to prevent and detect fraud. We are not aware of any issues from the audit. If you have any issues or concerns, please contact Vicky or I directly. On pages 4, 5, and 6 of the report, it summarizes our current audit process. On page 7, we want to I want to just highlight a significant change that is coming for the accounting standards. So this is effective now for your next year end, for your 2023 year end. The county will be required to recognize an asset retirement obligation for any capital assets that have retirement obligations. That is a big standard to deal with and to bring into effect. And so I just want to recognize it here because it is going to have an impact on your staff, your county staff in the next 6 months as they try to gather that information to be able to meet those standards. On page 8 and 9, there is also information on the changes to the auditing standards, which didn't have as large of an impact on the county staff, but it had a huge impact on our audit staff. So the new auditing standards came into effect for your 2022 year end. It meant that our audit staff had to basically completely redesign our audit process. And we had to bring in information systems specialists to review your IT systems, which we have been recognized as a very good system, but we still have to spend the time to document that. And there was, of course, no issues that arose, but that did take significant amount of time, and it did impact the county staff as they had to answer a whole lot more questions from our audit staff. On page 10, we're required as your auditor to report in writing if there is any significant deficiencies that we find in the internal controls in our testing during the audit. We're happy to report, we did not find any deficiencies in the design or the implementation of the internal controls during our audit testing. And then finally, on page 11, we're required to disclose to the county if we find any amounts that could have been adjusted that were not adjusted. And as you see, it is a blank page. And so we are very happy to report that all adjustments were made prior to our audit that needed to be made. And there is nothing to report. So that is a very high level overview of the communication. If there's any questions before we go on to the main financial statements. I'll just switch spots here with Vicki.
Good morning, everyone. And again, thank you for having us here this morning. I am just going to go through the really exciting part, which is the auditor's report and all the financial information. I know that's probably more exciting for me than it should be. But just going through the independent auditor's report, the format of that report has not changed in relation to prior years. So it should be showing very similarly to what we have reported to you in the past and what you would see at your home municipalities. We start the report with our opinion that we have audited the financial statements, and in our opinion, the consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the county at the end of 2022. This is the highest level of assurance that we can provide as auditors. The remainder of the report does go through the responsibilities of management, the responsibilities that BDO has as your auditors, and it is our anticipation that the report date will be within the next week, as Tracy advised, once we receive all that subsequent information that we need to finalize our audit report. I'm just going to give a high-level overview of the financial information. So this is your consolidated balance sheet, the statement of financial position at the end of December 2022. You will see there has been some fluctuation in the cash and investments, and that's going to be timing differences in regards to amounts received in receivables and when payments are made for accounts payable, and a function of your surplus changes during the year. There were some larger changes noted in accounts payable and accrued liabilities with different programs that were taking place, namely one of the largest amounts, the new daycare programs and amounts that are being expended to those organizations for the specific funding, as well as amounts that were outstanding at the end of the year to pay for the provincial offenses. The post-employment benefits, there was a new actuary report that was provided for the December 2022 year end. So there has been an adjustment in that post-employment benefit amount. And for deferred revenues, the largest changes were in the development charges, collections that were made but not yet expended till a future period, as well as additional amounts received but not yet expended for the community building fund. What we come down to is the net financial assets, and very minimal difference year over year, the net financial assets. So those are the resources that you have available when you consider the assets of the organization minus the financial liabilities, what is available to reinvest going forward. Looking at your non-financial assets, the largest increase is in the tangible capital assets. That's your TCA, if we've heard that acronym. And that's the investment that the municipality has made in the physical infrastructure, physical assets of the organization. We'll go through the next page, which will show sort of where that surplus came from overall. So when we look at the revenues of the municipality, the budget was about 159 million. You came in at just under 160 million dollars worth of revenues, very closely budgeted based on the scope of your organization. And then when we look at the expenses, the budget was 133 million and the actual was 146. If we actually look on the next page briefly, amortization is 13 million dollars. That actually is not an amount that's physically budgeted by the municipality. It's not a cash basis transaction. If we had budgeted, or if you had budgeted for that $13 million, you would have basically been spot on your budget for your expenses as well. We do note when we're looking at the variance analysis that the organization does budget very well in a detail-oriented manner to allow you to achieve these results. One thing I do want to point out is that the annual surplus is showing as a $25 million in the budget and $13 million in the actual. But I would direct council to look at note 7 in detail. The annual surplus is presented based on the public sector accounting standards, and that is prior to consideration of any amounts to be paid on long-term debt, any amounts to be purchasing of the capital assets, the amortization, or any transactions with the reserves, the amounts that are going to and from reserves. So that a balance of $13 million is what you're doing, what you were using to do that investment into the future of the municipality. Overall, the results were positive for the county. I wasn't going to go through the rest of the financial statements in detail, but if anyone has any questions as to the audit process, we can take those now.
Are there any questions from council? Councillor Gregg.
I'll just quickly review my my points here. But the first point, I'll go back to that slide. I have it on noted as page 6, the statement of operations. The transportation expense line is significantly different from budget to actual. I'm not concerned with that because actual is pretty much in line with 21. However, just about every department is over budget in terms of expenses from actual. So this is kind of redirected to staff, I guess. Departments can have an annual increase as part of the budget in the planning process. So you can get a greater amount within your budget. So could there be comment on when there's an exceedance over and above what is actually budgeted then? Because that when it's throughout each department, probably could use some explaining as to how we respond to that as a corporation or what that's attributed to. I would liken it to the federal government when demand stays the same and their revenues are massively over budget. They haven't realized that same surplus. They've been spending some of that surplus throughout the year and not realizing the actual funds that could have been recognized. So I'm just wondering if there's a comparison kind of here. We're spending through the year above budget.
Yep, Mary Lou will have a go at that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So as Vicky mentioned, on the statement of operations in the actuals, it includes our amortization, which we don't budget for. So when you look at the actuals of almost 23 million for transportation, all that difference really will be amortization. When you look at our overall surplus deficit, it was about $2 million. So we had money go into reserve. If it was a surplus, we pulled money out of reserve if there was a deficit in a department. So overall, if you excluded the amortization and post-employment benefits and future WSIB costs, transportation had about a $55,000 surplus, which is pretty amazing compared to the scope of that budget. So while we were over budget in operations, there was savings in their capital budget, and that netted out to about 55,000. So that's just one example.
You have another question, Councillor Gray?
No, that's good. Because I had referred back to, I think it was that March meeting where we had the reserve contributions and some surpluses noted. This just provides greater departmental oversight. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mary Lou. Anyone else have any questions? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, ladies. Appreciate your time and your efforts to make us understand the numbers. Very good. Thank you. And indeed, we do have some, well, in fact, all our staff are really good here at Grey County, so we appreciate that. Okay, moving on to determination of items requiring separate discussion from the consent agenda. There's quite a number of them there. Does anyone wish any of those items to be removed for further discussion later in the meeting? Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. B. B. B is Bob. B is Bob. Or bugger off. Okay.
Councillor Gregg, sorry.
Thank you, Warden. Item M, please. Report CW 0623, preparation of the updated county strategic plan.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll take a motion to receive the other items on the consent agenda. Councillor Patterson and Councillor Pringle. Discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Items for, what is it? It is almost 11 o'clock. Do we need a break? Okay, let's adjourn, or not adjourn. Let's recess. There's the word. Recess. Let's recess until, let's say 11 o'clock. 1 minute warning. Okay, we'll bring the meeting back to order. Rob tells me we're good to go. So with council's indulgence, the first item of the consent agenda that wanted further discussion, Councillor Gregg wanted item B. No, it was Councillor McQueen wanted item B discussed. Our lawyer Michael Letourneau is on the line, phone line, and he will speak to that item. He has to leave shortly or disconnect shortly. So with your indulgence, I'd like to proceed with that item now. Does anyone object? Okay. So good morning, Michael, and I'll turn the floor where I need a mover and seconder, Councillor Gregg and Councillor DeBreen. Okay, that is moved and seconded. Yeah, we'll start with you, Michael, if you'd like to speak to that item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and good morning, County Council. I'm speaking to the question of the correspondence that was sent from Jeff Bogarts, President of the Ontario Landowners Association, to the Honourable Doug Downey, the Attorney General of Ontario, which was included for information in the agenda. The Ontario Landowners Association wrote to the Attorney General with respect to the pilot project for legal services staff handling prosecutions on behalf of the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority and the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. This matter was before Committee of the Whole at its last meeting on May 11th in Staff Report LSR CW 0123 as part of the consent agenda. By way of a brief summary of the staff report, the pilot program provides that the county will make available the services of its prosecutors to represent those conservation authorities for charges related to certain offenses under the Conservation Authorities Act. At a very high level, they will handle two streams of charges. One is charges laid by way of Part 1 tickets for violations of the rules of conduct in Conservation Authority lands. This includes matters such as littering and camping without a permit. Second, they will deal with charges with respect to the Conservation Authority's land use regulation, such as interference with wetlands and development without a permit within a regulatory zone of a conservation authority. Staff have reviewed the correspondence from the Landowners Association and prepared some notes. We thank Tim Lanthier from Grey Sauble Conservation Authority and Jennifer Stevens from Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority for their assistance with some of the details. The correspondence raises three main points regarding the pilot program. One, they raise the point that saying that the program interferes with the jurisdiction and responsibilities of the Attorney General and their ministry. Secondly, in the correspondence, they say the program would contravene either the Provincial Offences Act or the Municipal Provincial Offences Act transfer agreement that Grey County is a party to. Third, they say that the program results in double or triple taxation. They also asked that the pilot program should be, quote, denied by the Attorney General. With respect to the Attorney General, in short, they have no role to play in the pilot program. The Attorney General and the staff of their ministry are directly responsible for the prosecution of charges laid in the name of the Crown. They also represent various provincial ministries in prosecution of charges laid by enforcement personnel from those ministries. Conservation Authorities Act charges are not laid in the name of the Crown, nor by provincial enforcement officials. Rather, they are laid by Conservation Authorities staff in the name of the responsible conservation authority. Consequently, that conservation authority is directly responsible for the prosecution of those charges. This is the same as Grey County being responsible to prosecute charges laid for violations of county bylaws enforced by county enforcement personnel, and for local municipalities being responsible for prosecution of their own municipal bylaws, as well as other laws that the municipality is responsible to enforce, such as the Building Code Act and the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. In pursuing those prosecutions, each conservation authority is responsible for choosing an appropriate representative to appear in court on their behalf to prosecute, just as municipalities are. They are in the same place as anyone else, public or private, who is faced with having to choose a lawyer to appear for them in court. In terms of who can represent a party in court, the Attorney General does not have the authority to deny anyone their choice of legal representative. That right, the right to choose legal counsel of one's choice, is an important principle of our justice system, and the Attorney General has no power to interfere with it. With respect to the Provincial Offences Transfer Agreement, simply put, transfer agreement responsibilities and Conservation Authorities Act prosecutions are independent of each other. The transfer agreement transfers some of the Attorney General's prosecution responsibilities to the municipal level. For example, the responsibility to prosecute most speeding tickets laid under the Highway Traffic Act was transferred from the ministry to municipal prosecutors. While the transfer agreement transfers those responsibilities, it does not restrict the ability of municipal prosecutors from prosecuting matters beyond those transferred from the ministry. Rather, Grey County prosecution staff, as licensees of the Law Society of Ontario, are able to represent other parties in provincial offences court. In doing so, they are bound to their professional responsibilities and the law applicable to prosecutors, just as they are when representing the county. With respect to the question of double and triple taxation, the Landowners Association suggests that conservation authorities receive provincial funding to undertake prosecutions and also receive the fine revenues such that they would benefit twice. Council is aware that the provincial contributions to Conservation Authority revenue is very small. Further, the conservation authorities do not receive any portion of the fines related to Conservation Authorities Act offences, nor does the provincial government. Rather, under the terms of the Provincial Offences Act, the transfer agreement, and the intermunicipal agreement between Grey and Bruce counties for implementing the transfer, those revenues first go to support the operations of the court, including prosecution costs. After that, any revenue surplus to requirements is apportioned to Grey and Bruce County to reduce county levy requirements. That concludes the specific comments we have, but should council wish, staff will prepare a letter of response to the association and to Ms. Marshall, who provided the OLA's concerns to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Councillor McQueen, did you have specific concerns or questions?
No, Mr. Warden, I appreciate that explanation. I think that's well warranted for us to hear that, because when you see legal, you sort of go, right? So thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions from council? Councillor DeBreen.
Through you, and I would actually recommend that we do respond in written correspondence if that is the wish of council. And I would move that if necessary.
I don't think that's out of order. If you want an amendment to do that, or how would you like that done? Because there is a motion on the floor. Yeah, would you like to amend the motion to provide that response to?
Yes, I would like to receive the correspondence for information and direct staff to or our legal counsel to respond to the association.
Okay, is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor McQueen. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor? Thank you. The amendment is carried. Back to the original motion. Any further discussion on the original motion as amended? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And thank you again, Michael, for your time. Moving right along, We are now, let's go to items for direction and discussion. Item number 7A. It's a letter of support for Southeast Grey Community Health Center. Would someone care to move that? Councillor DeBreen, seconded by Councillor McQueen. Thank you. Kim is going to speak to that one.
Thank you, Mr. Warden and council. I'm pleased to bring forward this item for your consideration. I was contacted recently by the Southeast Grey Community Health Center, which you will know as a nonprofit organization who provides primary care services and health programs to the residents of Chatsworth, Grey Highlands, Southgate, and West Grey. They are making application to the province's new expanding and enhancing interprofessional primary care teams program to support the hiring of some additional staff to the CHC. This will allow them to expand the scope of their services as well as see additional patients. I think that given the growth in the municipalities that the CHC serves, as well as the ongoing issues that we're all familiar with regard to access to primary care and the lack of family doctors, the CHC is seeing quite a significant increase in the requirements for their services. So this program being brought forward by the Ministry of Health, and I do understand from speaking to others, but there has been some significant interest by a number of organizations and providers across Grey and Bruce. I think that, being able to provide that letter of support would, add some additional strength to the CHC's application. And so I'm hopeful that council will see their way clear to support providing the letter that the CHC has asked for. Happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Thank you, Kim. And I see Councillor Matrosov, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Through the warden, I highly support this sending a letter of recommendation for this expansion. I had the opportunity to be able to actually tour and speak to the we could do everything we can to encourage this kind of community organization that is coming up with solutions in order to be able to provide this kind of multitude of care to our residents here in Grey County. So I highly support the idea that we send a letter of support and hopefully we can see more expansion in our area.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor McQueen.
Just to follow up, last night at our council meeting, we also sent a letter, and I would encourage the lower tier municipalities to do the same because we're all on the same team to support this great moving forward. So thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? Okay, call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Next one is a report regarding Grey Road 19/21 reconstruction. Director Pat Hoy is going to give us an update. It's always a popular discussion about roads in Blue Mountains. Oh yes, I need a mover and seconder. Please. Councillor Pringle, Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Okay, I got it here. All right, so this is an update on Grey Road 19 and 21. And this first page of this PowerPoint here corresponds to page 155 in the package. So this is an air photo with a kind of a forthcoming projects superimposed over top. I'll go into each one of these as we go to going over each project, but it's a huge kind of collection of projects that are kind of lumped together in the exact same area. So from The roundabout at 19 and 21, which is kind of that bluey purple roundabout area on your right, which has a booster station located in its future location. So we've got to move the booster station, Blue Mountains water booster station. Heading north is always up, of course. Heading north of that roundabout, there's a left turn lane into a development. There's that roundabout in the middle, which is an entrance to the Crosswinds development. And the yellow you'll see in the picture is a 4-laning. There's some orange on that picture, which is land acquisitions, and there's a little greeny kind of aquamarine future channel near the roundabout. So I'll go into each one of these, but as you can see, there's just a whole bunch of stuff going on in a pretty confined space. And then this is really more, some of you are quite familiar with the project, others are fairly new. It's been going on for a lot of years. So this is just to kind of get council up to speed. There'll be more reports coming forward in the next couple of years, ranging from land acquisitions to tenders to land agreements and that type of thing. So this is just to kind of get everybody on the same page with a little bit of background info. So the first is our timeline here, and the thing to notice, I mean, it goes back to 2011 when we had started undertaking maybe a future roundabout at 19 and 21, which is that was in the right of your picture there. So the important thing to notice about this chart is probably there's a couple kind of major milestone things that impacted the project. From 11 to 12, in 2011, it was a roundabout, and it had been a roundabout for a while in the planning. And then in 2012, it got moved to be a set of signals. So you'll see, it went from 4.3 million in the budget to 500,000. It wasn't because things got cheaper. It was just because they decided they were going to go with signals. So we kind of continued under that assumption for a while. An EA came out in 14. And the original finding of that EA was that it should be signals. But then basically it was ruled because of cost that it should be signals. Now, once 16 rolled around, most parties involved in this didn't think that was the greatest idea. The lifespan of a set of signals giving an appropriate level of service was probably too short. By 2025, we would have built an intersection that was out of date. And so back in 2018 or 16, the EA got opened up again. And by 2018, the EA had gone through and we'd finalized that a roundabout was the preferred option. So one other thing that it's just kind of a strange thing because the project has gone on so long. If we had finished it in 2011 or 12, we would be faced with a lot of challenges now. The booster station that Blue Mountains is redesigning now, and there's a sanitary trunk sewer underneath the intersection that will probably be extended south of the roundabout. And this was all before the Blue Mountains bought the Tees Place property. So in a way, it's the delay hasn't been great for some of the levels of service of the intersections and such, and the whole Crosswinds full build out of the huge development and a kind of a better idea of the traffic. So we have benefited in a way from our speed or lack of speed in getting this project done. So at least we're catching a few things as we go. So this is probably really, for the short term at least, the biggest kind of impediment of getting this project completed is just that booster station. So back in the day, 1990s somewhere, the booster station was installed by the town of Blue Mountains. It was installed in the right of way, but out of the way of the existing intersection. But then as soon as the intersection upgrade plans started coming, it was in the way. So it needs to be moved. But there was no agreement saying when it would be moved or who would pay what. And we've learned lessons on that too. Like our fiber agreement now, if someone puts fiber in the ground and we move it in 2 years because of our construction, we're on the hook. By the time you get out to 8 years, it's kind of to the provider. So it's just one of those things that, they didn't think of it, I guess, back then. No one kind of realized how much the Blue Mountains was going to kind of blow up with development. And so it was kind of in a poor spot. So we went through, got an agreement, as you might remember, with the town of Blue Mountains to share on the cost of designing and constructing a new booster station. That being said, the estimate of the booster station then was about $2 million. So we were gonna go 50-50 on it. Well, now it's 3.75, which you'll see on the next page coming up here. So it's kind of one of those things right now. We're probably slated to pay probably a lot more than seems fair to me. But there's lots of things to go. The project is a long way from, there's still lots of little design issues. There's a lot of land in that, you'll see in that slide where that booster station is going to go. And that is land that is going to become Grey County right away. So that land is, pretty high priced. It's development area. So there's some more developments or some more land to be exchanged. There's a lot more estimating to be done on the booster station. It's in a preliminary state right now. And part of the reason for the increase in cost is the booster station obviously now is a lot more advanced than the one was in 1994 or whenever it was built. So it's going above ground, which is safer. It's better for workers. It's just easier to maintain, and everything has gone up in price. So, we're looking forward to working with the Blue Mountains to just come out with as the booster station design advances and we get some land things solved and some extra utility movement prices in place. To kind of working with them to get maybe a more appropriate number. And you'll see, by the way, so this is it's kind of hard to see here, but that's the booster station. And then there's some infrastructure that goes kind of with the booster station for future development. But the one thing to notice is you'll see kind of where that green line is, that future channel. So basically in our traffic study of the roundabout, it was said at some point, people heading east towards Collingwood, that there's a major movement of people heading east towards Collingwood and going south. And then, going over to the highway across different roads once they get there. So we want to make sure, for sure, we didn't put the new booster station in where a future road was going to go. So we've got it moved now. The channel is designed for a future date, which could be 20 years from now yet. But at least when that time comes, we will not have to move anything again. So there's the latest cost estimate on the booster station. You'll see like $1 million of it is a structural building. There is no building there now. So that represents a pretty significant upgrade on the booster station that's currently there. And here's other considerations. Just you'll see in this picture, you can see it a little better. So there's like a dashed red line, which is the Hydro, EPCOR, Rogers, Enbridge, Bell, all the utilities. So we've met out there with utilities for a bunch of years. And when everyone's kind of standing around the intersection, everyone kind of agrees this could not be any worse. Like it's a bunch of agencies, different agencies crossing each other. You can't move one without designing the other. It all kind of went on Hydro One designing first, and everyone kind of backfilled in and lined up behind them to design. So that's a big thing that we have to figure out. Most of the designs are kind of getting done now. We're hoping by this fall, we're going to start we've done a few, I believe Rogers already relocated some of their stuff. But you'll see all the orange in that picture was land acquisitions. We got a lot from the developer at the Mountain House site. We're going to have to get some off Blue Mountain for Tees Please. And Simcoe is currently negotiating with that landowner on the northeast corner. And there's going to be some building some berms and planting some trees and kind of protecting them as the road moves a little closer to their residents. There's another issue, the gateway feature. Everybody kind of Blue Mountain Council had passed that they would like a gateway feature. Collingwood is in on that too. They'd like a gateway feature. Although I don't think it's our job to pay for it, but anyway, another discussion to come forward. Just, welcome to Grey, it's just kind of it is a gateway to a lot of places, right? Welcome to Collingwood, welcome to Blue, welcome to Grey, welcome to Simcoe. Don't know how that looks yet, but it's going to be something that's going to be incorporated into the design as we go. And as I said, that new sanitary trunk, right now, the sanitary sewer ends north of the proposed roundabout. And in order to avoid future work again, the Blue Mountains will be constructing a extension of that trunk so that any future development south on 19 will be accommodated and we won't have to dig the new roundabout up again, of course. And there's also a left turn lane you'll see right at the north end of that picture into the Mountain House development. So they've already contributed financially to us, and it's going to be tied in with the contract. It's already designed. So it's waiting. They're waiting for that left turn lane for the roundabout project to go. So this is Crosswinds, which is quite a, windfall development originally, and it's Crosswinds Boulevard. It's currently signalized. So when we met with the developer originally, it was a stop sign, and the developer had agreed that as traffic increased, the stop sign eventually would probably become inappropriate. So right now they have a set of signals there that they installed and paid for. And at some point we said we want a roundabout because it's between two roundabouts. We're not going to put a set of signals between two roundabouts. So they agreed to that, to construct a single lane roundabout at some point in the future through their various phases of expansion. Now they've expanded pretty quickly. They're getting near the end of their phases. But again, they were going to build a 1-lane roundabout, which, is appropriate for a 2-lane road. And now we want to build a 2-lane roundabout, which would service a 4-lane road. So we have to get into an agreement with the developer about who pays for what. They did agree to pay for the roundabout to upgrade that intersection when the time was appropriate, which it's probably there, and it's only the delay of the project that has it from not being done right now. The other thing I just wanted to mention, so there was a group of residents in the Windfall development there, and generally relatively new residents, didn't necessarily know about the project. When the EA had closed, they weren't really happy with the results. And rightly so, it has been fairly quiet there. They weren't expecting it to be anything other than very quiet. So they're just trying to, make it suit their lifestyle. So there was a lot of talk about pedestrians. So I'll go on to the next slide here. So we've done a lot of looking into roundabouts in general. This is the Crosswinds roundabout designed by the developer engineer. So the same engineer that's doing our roundabout as well. So that was his preliminary design. Now there's other things that have come out of that. There'll be land acquisition to the south of that roundabout. You can see on your left, that's a schematic. And there'll also be probably a stub going in there for future development of that site. But the major thing that has changed, and we've noticed this in Kitchener-Waterloo, was generally roundabouts were always pedestrians yield to motorists. So, and they've had a very good history of lack of collisions because the pedestrians generally feel unsafe because there is nothing stopping the car from hitting you, basically. And we've seen statistics that it's actually cheaper, it's actually safer than a signal, because everyone knows sometimes you just get the person on their phone or whatever walking across the crosswalk thinking, well, the car is going to stop. Really, I mean, you don't want to take that chance. They might stop, but you should still be aware. But now roundabouts seem to be, especially in areas where there's a lot of pedestrians, they're starting to go to get them to stop for pedestrians with some pavement markings and just that overall motorist stop for pedestrians. But you got to watch where you're putting your crossing, of course, because you don't want it backed up into the roundabout. And you don't really want it far enough away from the roundabout that cars are starting to get up to speed or still looking in the other direction. So we've noticed that the last bunch of roundabouts they've done in Kitchener and Waterloo are starting to get the cars stopped for pedestrians. So when this happens, we would want all the roundabouts and those 3 roundabouts to be consistent. Our old roundabout isn't designed that way. We would have to do a lot of some signage change and a lot of public notification to make sure everybody kind of knows what the rules are. Motorists and pedestrians, of course. So the Grey Road 19 4-laning, we've had in the background study since 2011, and it's been kind of on the books for a long time. We knew eventually that road was going to get so busy that it couldn't be avoided. So they did a traffic study in 2021, Burnside did, and realized we'd be reaching the capacity of the lane by 2025. And really, we're kind of there now, really, if you look at some traffic numbers. But we had a public information session, as said, concerned by the residents and the roundabout crossings and paved shoulders. So that was another thing that came up was the cyclists, of course, like their bike lanes. As you know, we have paved shoulders, not bike lanes, really. But if you look at Book 18, it says, the kind of expert cyclist is only 4 to 7% of the population. So ideally, most of the active transportation is on a multi-use trail. Well, this section has a multi-use trail, but we are still paving the shoulders. So a competitive cyclist, and there's a lot of them in Blue Mountain, especially. A lot of people make trips to visit there with their cycling groups and such, because the terrain's so beautiful and they love climbing hills for some reason I can't understand. But anyway, so the new 4-laning is going to be 4 lanes, paved shoulder, which is kind of for the competitive cyclists, but then there's always the multi-use trail there for the average person walking or cycling or whatever they want to do to get moving in active transportation, which we always support. So this cost estimate, it's as you can see at the top of the project there, it was around 7 million. With that does not include the new booster station. This is from the 10-year capital. So that's going to be 9 million now. And probably up, as you know, nothing ever seems to get cheaper year to year. And about right now, over 6 million of that is development charges. So I know, you know, that development charge reserve report comes out and it looks like a big number in there, but it doesn't take much if you get a couple big projects. And this is one project. I mean, one bunch of little projects, but, you know, it's not too hard to blow through 7 or 8 million when you really do a major upgrade. And we always knew that 4-laning was, going to be, it's been the priciest thing in our development charges for a long time. It's kind of been driving how much our development charges are, because we know when it hits, you really need the money to do it. So very complicated finance stuff too. We've got some money in reserves. There's stuff coming out. There's Simcoe and Blue Mountains contributions there. So these numbers are going to change. It's just to show you kind of how complicated it gets and how it just keeps kind of moving forward. I think that's it. There's more questions.
Thanks, Pat. Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and thanks for the report. When you mentioned about pedestrians crossing a roundabout, I don't know, anytime I get into those, you just like, I just wonder is when, you know, that one there doesn't have the bottom leg, but you're just sort of going around a bubble, right? But sometimes you get in some of those multi-lane roundabouts, you're looking at where you're going. You may not be always, well, I guess you're going to see a person there, but it, you know, probably with new generations learning on roundabouts, that wasn't in our book, whatever, when we got our license. But it just, when you come to those, people are somewhat freaked out to a certain degree when they come into those roundabouts and just adding pedestrians. It just leaves a little bit of caution there, I think, in that sense. So you're going to have to have some good, but signage, but then, you know, you come around and then you're this lane or there's that lane and you're like, okay, and there's a car coming here and you're like, whew, got through it. It is a little nerving, I find, right? I don't know. If others have that.
Pat?
Yeah, I could speak to that a little bit. I really think, you know, part of it is the North American culture of driving compared to, say, Europe. You know, where for years, North Americans, you know, you kind of feel I'm in my lane, everyone get out of my lane and that's where I'm going. Whereas, you know, you go around Europe and there's people on bikes, people walking, there's cars, there's some guy pulling a horse thing or whatever. And everyone's sort of uncomfortable and looking out for everyone else. Like the responsibility is on the driver. Right? Like I got to watch that guy. He might cross, you know, that truck looks like it's going to pull out from that parking space, or whatever. And it just seems like people slow down when they're uncomfortable. And it's, as more people use active transportation in our road networks, you know, people need to realize that you don't own the road. You know what I mean? You are using it along with everybody else. So I know what you mean. Like, and it goes back to pedestrians too. And it's, like I said, it's the same with pedestrians. All those, you know, they hit the walk light and they think I'm going, they're not looking, there's a car that clearly is not going to stop. And no one even sees it, you know? So like a lot of it is just that as these facilities get built, people get more used to them, I think.
And I think about more the senior drivers, like you know, my dad's still driving and he just gets freaked out when he gets into one of those things because they're just not used to it. You know, it's just it takes time to go through it. But you're right, it does slow people down, and you got to watch for everybody. It's going to just take a time. Well, we're like, you go to Kitchener that way, there's more down that way, but we just don't have that exposure the same. But when you get into it, you're like, oh, yeah, one of those things, right? So it's just a natural reaction, but yeah, thanks.
Councillor Mastersoff, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Through you, the warden. I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions for Mr. Hoy. My first comment is absolutely thank you very much for referencing the need to reach out to Simcoe County in terms of their contribution and their responsibility towards this project and its financial implications, because it's one-sided to think that this is just a conduit of people traveling through Simcoe County to enter into Grey County and drop their economic development benefits here in the county. They're also returning, and they're also leaving our county and going back into Simcoe County, and they're making use of the economic opportunities that are there in Collingwood, and we need to make sure that that's consistently part of the conversation. I'll leave the rest of the financial comments to the Deputy Mayor or to Councillor Bordigon next. The other thing is too, is I have asked that as we plan these stretches out, that we also continue to engage with each other, both the municipality as well as the county, in terms of the continuity of the active transportation and the best location for that active transportation, because just above the existing roundabout is the next stretch. And I want to make sure that we're not making decisions piecemeal and then regretting that we've chosen a certain location or a certain style of pathway. So I'm not discounting the needs, the analysis that's been done for the multi-use pathway in this section, but I am asking that we continue to have that dialogue about the best placement and the continuity that happens after the existing roundabout that goes further north. My two questions through the warden to Director Hoy is I'll state my two questions and then just hand it over. Would it not be reasonable to focus on building the 21 and 19 roundabout first and then be able to monitor the flow before we take any further action on expanding to the 4 lanes of that stretch of road that you've also been talking about that goes along Crosswinds? I think it would be prudent for us to be able to see how we can alleviate the backups by doing that larger roundabout at 21 first and be able to study what kind of impact that has, because the ultimate is the safety, but also that we want to keep the flow going. We don't want to have backlogs. But with that question is also the question on how that might work with timing with our continued Grey County's advocacy, as well as the town of Blue Mountains, as well as Simcoe County, our advocacy to the province to consider a roundabout at 21 and Highway 26. Because if somebody is coming in from the Highway 26 route from Collingwood and they're looking to go in, or they're looking to return in reverse from that kitty corner, from the Elkhorn restaurant, it's actually just as viable to carry along 26 and then come up 19 from the lighted intersection, that is the depot intersection. There is no reason for us to be funneling extra traffic to head south on 21, grab this roundabout, and then go through that Crosswinds trouble section. So literally, it's like a square. So I'd like to ask Director Hoy if there's some timing commentary he could do in terms of how we continue to put that point in front of the province.
Thank you. Pat?
Okay, yeah, I'll start just first by saying, yeah, Simcoe has been involved with this every step of the way. They've been in every meeting. The wrinkle is always just that it is just that booster station. We all know it's only being moved because of the roundabout. They are partners in the roundabout, but they do kind of waffle a little bit on exactly what they're going to pay dealing with the booster station, as does everybody else, it seems. But it's just a little thing out there that we haven't quite agreed on a price on what everyone's going to pay, but they are fully invested in paying for their half of the roundabout, which in fact, if anything, they're wishing it was done, I think. And just back to kind of the timing, I should have mentioned it in the report. We are still working quite a bit on the timing because of all the stakeholders we have in this project. I guess the issue is the counts where the future 4 laning are going to happen are basically there that the lanes are at capacity now. And they're probably only as low as they are because the lights at 19 and 21 are really a terrible level of service and not enough cars can get through that intersection. So, we are pretty positive that when that roundabout gets built, if anything, the future 4-laning is going to be busier than it is now. And the other wrinkle in the timing is just that Crosswinds roundabout that they're paying for, or at least paying for 2 lanes or 1 lane of the 2-lane roundabout. We want to get that done too, because they're kind of on the hook for doing that for us, and they've been agreeable to that that's been the plan all the way along. But so when you start thinking we're gonna build the 1921 roundabout, and then we're gonna build Crosswinds. So say we do it in the same year for economies of scale and 1 tender. Well, then that yellow area in between, by the time you do a couple lanes and that type of thing, you're only about 300 meters from getting the 4-laning, at least between the 2 roundabouts. I have a feeling those will go together, and maybe the future 4-laning west of the Crosswinds roundabout might wait, because we don't quite have the land there. There's utilities we haven't designed yet. We haven't designed the road yet either, the future 4-lane, that part, because originally it was just that first leg. So there's a lot of timing things to talk about with the mountain. There's a bunch of construction coming up there. We don't want to be an impediment to their development. There's Montero Road, and the town has some work to do there. So we do have a lot of work to do on timing. And as far as like the regional transportation, as you know, Blue and ourselves and Simcoe, we've been bugging MTO quite a bit, and they came up here, they did their road tour, they've been listening about getting some sort of South Georgian Bay master transportation plan, because we really feel that way. And they don't disagree with us. They're always just, bigger fish to fry sometimes, but it's so many, between anyone going through Collingwood and Stayner and Blue Mountain and, all the way to Meaford, and Grey Highlands. It's just, we want to protect future corridors, and we want to have a long-term plan to figure out what it's going to be, instead of the ultimate just 5-laning, Highway 26 for the whole way. Same as we've been asking for roundabout at 21 and 26. Randy recently wrote a letter just to confirm again that all parties think that's probably the best solution. So we're still going to continue to push for that regional lens, looking at transportation, because you got the Toronto Horseshoe ultimate transportation plan. We don't really have one up here, and we want one. So
thanks, Pat. Councillor DeBreen. Just Councillor Bordino, were your questions related to Councillor Matrosov's, or?
Yes, they were, Mr. Warden, but I can wait. It's up to you.
Okay, Councillor DeBreen will wait. So you go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through you to Pat and to Mr. Hoy. Thank you, Pat. But the 21-26, we see more traffic coming in westbound along 26 than we do along Mountain Road, and we've had a lot of pushback from the residents. Even though it's a regional initiative, from the Crosswinds, we're looking at 6 phases going in there, and we still question the timing on the 4-lane roads coming in through that stretch, where I think more traffic would be funneled up. I know the province needs to be involved, but that push for the 26-21, that's probably one of our more dangerous intersections, as it goes into a curve pattern as you're heading westwardly right into Craigleith. So, looking at, you mentioned economies of scale, which I fully support, based on, this is altogether, you're probably looking at a right now an $11-12 million project. And with 4.7 million of that coming from the expansion, I think that money would be better funneled into the 21-26. So I guess my ask to you would be, how hard can we push the MTO and take a look at, through the studies, of the extra roundabout as opposed to the expansion of the 4-lane? Because I don't know, if I still not sold on the 4-lane, alleviating any traffic congestion. The roundabouts will do a good job, but I'm not sure. And I think we can funnel it west and then back south again, as the mayor said, as Councillor Matrosov said. So I know we just said another letter. So I guess my question is, how feasible do you think that may be in the near future, when we're looking at a 2025? Do you think that's something that may be able to come to fruition in the next couple of years?
I'm a little confused by the question. Like, are you talking about giving money to MTO to build that roundabout?
No, just on our planning section. On our planning session, that we're like on the books right now at Gray Road 19, 4-lane expansion, Gray County Road 119 and 21. But at 21 and 26, we're seeing from the municipal level that may be better served with a roundabout than expanding the 4 lanes through Crosswoods.
Yeah, we haven't, I was just wondering if Trevor was here.
Trevor's here.
Did you want to talk about some traffic? Or no? That's kind of a hard question to answer because it's all in theory, right? Every traffic study that we've had done is, basically because this is, like we always say, it's kind of like an hourglass where there's a whole bunch of lanes coming in on each side into this little, small section here. In fact, we had, I think Burnside did well, I'll just back up a bit. So years ago, we always had jobs in our development charges. And it was just kind of like, oh yeah, that'll go in what year? I don't know, 2028, say. Well, we went back a few years ago and said, let's actually get a traffic study and try to get a little more accurate estimate on what year things are going to go. And actually, one thing we did find, and Highway 20 or the 4-laning of Gray Road 21 is in development charges as well at the very end of the development charges. So it really just doesn't have near the traffic that the other section does. So it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I guess someone could do some modeling and figure out, well, maybe if it was a roundabout and someone went, the other way. But I don't know, it's kind of a complicated modeling exercise, I think.
Kim.
Pat or Randy, maybe. I know that you've had a lot of conversations with MTO about the regional planning and how to keep traffic flowing on 26. If I'm understanding, I think part of what Councillor Mastersov and Councillor Bourdignon are asking is, what is the likelihood that MTO will be willing to move forward with the roundabout at 21 and 26? Have they indicated to you at any time an appetite for that, or whether that's even on the radar screen? And I know that there's more meetings to come, but if you want to speak to that.
Randy's back there waving at a fly. I'm sure he would.
Thank you for that. And with respect to the discussions that we've had to date with MTO, I think all the municipalities, including both Gray County, Simcoe County, the Town of Blue Mountains, Town of Collingwood, as well as other neighboring municipalities in that South Georgian Bay area, have indicated that if there was any one project that MTO could pursue, would be a roundabout at that intersection. We highlighted that as part of that tour that Pat mentioned with the 2 MTO directors from both the Southwest region as well as the Central region. We recently raise it to them again, as Pat indicated, in terms of a letter to those 2 directors, just to, again, try to put it back on their radar. We haven't had any firm commitments in terms of MTO looking to pursue that. We have had lots of discussions, as Kim noted, with MTO and the need to update the data and the modeling with respect to the traffic that's happening in around that area, because it's significant. It's changed significantly over the last number of years. And the modeling that was done as part of the 2015 study that was completed, MTO has recognized that they need to update that study. That was the last conversation that we had with MTO to at least advance and update that study. There's been discussions in the past about the willingness to help support that roundabout project in any way that we can. That offer has been put on the table in terms of helping with the design, helping with advancing the studies to demonstrate the need for that roundabout at that intersection. To date, we haven't had much uptake. I know that we have AMO delegations listed in the council and the committee of the whole meeting later on the agenda. There is one that's identified for MTO. We could look at if council is agreeing to expand that, to add that particular intersection, as well as to update that 2015 study in that area, because we see definitely a need to update and have a master plan for that South Georgian Bay area, just based on the development, the growth, the tourism traffic that we're seeing. The needs are great. And the way that the traffic is going right now, they from the Simcoe area, they go through either on Mountain Road or south of Mountain Road, and then exit out up to this 1921 intersection that Pat highlighted. What's part of that is driving the need for having to put it as a roundabout, and the need, as Pat indicated through the traffic study, the need to 4-lane that section of road, because we're running into capacity challenges based on the traffic from the provincial highways flowing through that area and funneling out and heading over to the Blue Mountain Resort area. So the needs are there. The numbers definitely warrant the upgrades that are being identified. And it's just making sure that the timing makes sense and how we approach that, as well as in connection with future upgrades on the provincial highway that we've been discussing with MTO, but we haven't had a lot of significant traction at this state in terms of when the timing would be for those future upgrades. But we're happy to continue to advance those discussions the best way we can.
Thank you, Randy. And I guess for one, I don't understand all the consternation. MTO has always been very responsive in the past, as I'm sure any of us could acknowledge. That was extreme sarcasm. Anyway, Councillor DeBreen, thank you for being patient.
Always, thank you. And I just wanted to touch on the pedestrian. I understand the need to expand to a 4-lane and roundabouts, keep traffic flowing, but there are always issues with, demanding traffic calming measures, and roundabouts just don't calm traffic. They just keep traffic flowing, which is fine. And I understand what you're saying about moving the pedestrian crossings to outside of the roundabouts. What about school buses? Because I remember there was talk about the concern for onloading and offloading the children. And I'm not sure if that is on Crosswinds or if it's on 19. And if it is on 19, are there discussions with the school bus operators with going into the development as opposed to, on a main 4-lane highway is what it's becoming, is a highway?
Yeah, and I didn't really get too much into Crosswinds. I know the picture they had sent us of the school buses was through Crosswinds. So that's another, there's another, that was originally the town that was kind of an arterial collector, whatever you want to call it, to come out at Jozo. So I think it's a 37-meter right away, maybe. It's quite large. And it was always intended to be kind of a collector, kind of a major thoroughfare. But since the subdivision to the north wasn't finished, people that live there have gotten used to a quiet road that doesn't go anywhere. And they are not really happy that it's going to be a big road that does go somewhere. So I know that is not our issue. That's really for the town to deal with. But it does create some of those issues where that will probably, there's 4-way stops there now that were never intended to be there. But for the group that's there now, it sort of makes sense maybe that, but that's kind of where that is. As far as we know, as far as school buses and that type of thing, there's no school buses that we know that really stop on 19 much. But again, if it is 4 lanes, we would have everyone still has to pay attention to the rules of the road and all those kind of things. And we'd be doing what we can for all the active transportation folks. But.
Thanks, Pat. Councillor Greg.
Thanks, Warden, and thanks, Pat, for the presentation today. This is certainly a project that's got a lengthy history and certainly for your department, a lot to work through. So just going to touch on a couple of points. For one question I'll leave with you, is there a plan to widen Mountain Road in Simcoe County, Collingwood, that you're aware of, to 4 lanes in the foreseeable future as well? I'm a big supporter of roundabouts, but not where there's significant pedestrian traffic. I encountered one, I think it was in Schaumburg area or northeast of Richmond Hill. And there's no way you would dream of crossing that roundabout at 4, maybe even like a 2-lane or maybe even 3-lane as a pedestrian. And I'm very fortunate that I'm able-bodied. So I have significant concerns with people have perhaps lesser mobility means of crossing. It's one thing to see the car in the outside lane, or perhaps even worse, to see the car in the outside lane stop. And then there's no guarantee or certainty that the car in the inside lane is going to yield to that pedestrian. And it's all fine and dandy that it says, well, the pedestrian had the right of way, but so the motorcyclist until the car turned left in front of it, right? So the 4-lane without even enhanced safety measures, if the pedestrian counts are there, I think you may want to still consider some elevated means of signalizing for when a pedestrian's there that still promotes a greater degree of safety. There's a lot of trepidation, I think, that should be held if there's significant foot traffic that wants to cross those pedestrians or cross the roundabouts. Secondly, I did enjoy what I was hearing from Councillor Matrosov and Councillor Bordino about advocating further still to the province about 21 and 26, and perhaps driving more usage on Montero Road. I don't know. But at some point, we've seen costs morph on this project over 10 years. Is there an upset limit that internally here we have established where we're saying, well, you know, we're at 8 million approximate now. We can't go to 11 or 12. And at some point we have to rescale and say, okay, no, we're going to re-entertain the idea of signalized intersections, that the sum of money for this particular part of road just doesn't, it's just too much then. So when do we revisit perhaps alternatives when the monies continue to increase?
Yeah, a few things to unpack there. I'm not sure where Collingwood, their transportation plan with Mountain Road was. Not sure what the last meeting. Yeah, I know they're doing a master plan, and I think they were talking about 4-laning more towards Collingwood and that last little piece before the roundabout because of geometric issues. I don't think it's on the horizon, to our knowledge. So the question about pedestrians, yeah, there isn't a big need for pedestrians there now. It doesn't seem like there's a lot, but obviously we're not going to build any facility without something for pedestrians. It'd be something we would be obviously making the safest choices we can. That might even lead to eventually a mid-block signalized pedestrian crossing, say, depending on if we see any pedestrians there at all. There's a lot of pedestrians at our existing roundabout, and we've had no issues. Now, mind you, that's only a 2-lane or single lane roundabout, not a 2 as well, right? So it's always our main focus to take care of our pedestrians and driver safety, of course. And as far as the money, like that is something, through the 10-year plan and through our yearly budget, that is something that always comes back to this council. So, to say, well, we're never spending more than $8 million, then, well, construction costs go up. Well, what are you going to do then? I think we evaluate projects as they go. And there is projects over years that, fall off the 10-year capital and some go on and whatever. But I think we're always trying to make the best decision with our money. It seems like a lot of money, but when you look at how many cars are going through here and how many pedestrians there are and how much development there is, and there's 700 units in Crosswinds, and maybe it's not as much money per person as you think. I don't know.
Thanks, Pat, and thank you for all the questions. Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I think I want to reflect back on your chronological list over the years, how you've had to keep updating it. And I don't know if the town of Blue Mountains is going to slow down. Because I know that there's, talk about another theme park. I've heard different stories. We know it, the planning department might know better than that, but to look at, I think, Councillor Gray makes a good point. If Simcoe County or town of Collingwood needs to look at a 4-lane, I think it's just a matter of time. The amount of traffic that keeps coming there, it's a matter of time on that side. So
I don't think we want to cut ourselves short for that future growth as well, because people don't like construction after you build something, then have to do it all over, and so I think we want to get it right sized too. So I'll just leave those comments.
Thank you, Councillor McQueen. I think we can all agree that there's a lot of work to do in this. As Pat said, there's a lot of work remaining on this project or series of projects. And yeah, we can look forward to not being done in the near future. So any further questions? Okay, do we have a mover and seconder? It's been an hour or two. What? Yes, we do. Okay. All right. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Pat, you're up for the next one. Don't go away. So proceed, please. Oh, wait, I mean, mover and seconder. Councillor Hutchison, Councillor Kepke. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And I have Scott's pre-lunch time slot, I guess. Because I'm getting hungry myself too, obviously. Yeah, so this is more housekeeping. This was a job we did last year with Owen Sound on Gray Road 15 and East Bay Shore Road. And basically, it was in last year's budget. Most of it was done last year, but there was some carryover funds and it didn't get rebudgeted into the 2023 budget. So this report is just to take the money out of the development charge reserve and the transportation general reserve, because the extra money from the budget that we didn't spend last year, that's kind of where it went back to. So just to kind of get money out of the reserve now that the job is complete to pay for it.
Any questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Pat. It got better as you went. We have no closed meeting matters. Oh, right. We have the item M from the consent items that Councillor Greg wanted to do some discussion on. Could someone, do you want to move that, receive that, Councillor Greg, or no? No. Okay. Would someone else like to move it? Councillor Nielsen, seconder. Councillor Carlton. Thank you. So, Kim.
I can, did you have a specific question, Councillor Greg? And I'll focus my remarks there.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'll talk very quickly because I do have to excuse myself to attend a Georgian College luncheon for 12:30. So I just wasn't convinced in the report that we needed to go back and enhance the strategic plan. I think it was done in 2020 and it wasn't just communicated well enough to me that there was an overwhelming need to allocate so many resources back into updating the strategic plan because we've undertaken an economic development and tourism master plan. It sounded kind of like the consultant suggesting that this would be an opportune time, but after 2.5, 3 years, that wasn't convincing for me for the amount of resources that get allocated to another update. It's easy for the consultants to advocate for those, that's what they do. But I wasn't convinced of the corporate need to revisit that. So even though it's $42,000 coming out of development charges, no. Yeah, it was reserve. Sometimes the monies are still fine to stay in the reserve because they have to be replenished. So I was just wishing to hear more on that. And I do apologize if conversation is going on while I have to step out. Thanks.
Thank you for the opportunity to clarify. So the preparation of an updated county strategic plan was a resolution that was passed by the previous council based on a report that was brought forward to them in September of 2022. As council is aware, I think from earlier discussions, Grey County, I think, adopted its very first strategic plan back in 2012. And we've undertaken various updates to that along the way. What was discussed with the previous council was the fact that many initiatives in the last update of the strategic plan had been completed. And as well, there was a tremendous amount of work on strategies and task force reports, et cetera, that were completed, especially during the COVID time. And so it was felt that it was appropriate then to be able to pick up that strategic planning work and put all of this together. I think you're not incorrect, certainly, Councillor Gregg, that the county's overarching goals, I don't think those are expected or anticipated to change markedly, but how we want to prioritize the work, the outcomes that we want to see, how these various initiatives intersect with one another, and how we're building towards some outcomes that are, for this term of council, was the discussion that was meant to take place. And I want to be very clear that certainly this was not McSweeney and Associates who approached or suggested that they take on this work. This was direction from myself, because they were already very involved in the economic development, tourism and culture strategic planning process. They're undertaking a significant amount of consultation and discussion. As a matter of fact, this was an opportunity to try and save some money because they're already doing that work and already engaged. They can hit the ground running. They're already very involved in conversations. They can finish up this piece of work, give us the strategic planning document that we need, and a process that will allow yourselves and the public to participate and make comment in this document that's going to carry us through this term of council for significantly less money than it would cost if we were to go out and start with a fresh new RFP. I think there's just a tremendous amount of value, and avoid some duplication of effort, if you will. There's just a lot going on right now. And it was my hope that time is passing so quickly that if we don't soon get the strategic planning work done, it's starts to lose its value because a amount of time has passed. And if council wanted to make, give staff different direction or take things in a different direction, we start to lose our opportunity to do that in a really meaningful way. So wanting to move forward with this quickly was another aspect of the decision. But really, this is your report, it's your work, and I'm very open to any suggestions or comments that any of you would like to make about this. Thanks.
And I thank the CAO very much for that. I just not convinced it wasn't something that I had heard around the table advocating for until this point, and it's just an expenditure then it's landed before council. So I would have been more comfortable supporting it if I had heard leading up to this from councillors particular weaknesses or opportunities, areas of improvement from the previous strategic plan. And just without hearing that building up to this, I just wasn't prepared to support it. So thanks.
It was, I will say, we did speak to it very briefly in the budget with this council, and it was also part of some minutes from the CAO committee back in February, I think, or March. So, but only very briefly. So thank you.
Okay, any further questions on that one? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Okay, as I mentioned, there's no closed meeting matters. Other business, you can see a list of delegations that are going to be requested. Are there any considerations of further, or would you like any clarification on what specifically these requests are for? Certainly no guarantee that we'll get one or all or any of them, but we can ask. Councillor DeBreen.
Not that I need clarification or that I wish to amend this in any way, Warden. I just, from our conversation with Mr. Hoy, that perhaps the delegation request include a bit about the 21-26 roundabout with MTO.
Okay. I understand. I think it's the town of Collingwood. The town of Collingwood is delegating on that very matter. Perhaps we could maybe piggyback with them, or, consult with them, support them, something of that nature. Kim, do you want to speak to that maybe?
It was reported in the media yesterday as a follow-up from a Town of Collingwood meeting. There's the South Georgian Bay group that meets regularly. And I think as follow-up to both discussions at that table as well as the discussions that Randy and Pat mentioned. We have had a regional approach to this. Collingwood intends to continue that work and ask for a delegation. It was made very clear by CO Skinner's remarks to Collingwood Council that it was critical that Grey County and Simcoe County both be at the table. So I think if we take that from there, that we don't need to ask for a delegation on our own. If we can simply work with our partners, perhaps there's strength in numbers if we're all pursuing the same outcome.
I'm more than satisfied with that. That's a great approach. Thank you for the update.
Excellent. So if there's no additions or deletions from that list, I'll ask a motion to endorse it. The list of Councillor Nielsen. Second, Councillor Dickert. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Oh, one more thing.
If I can ask council, you see that the list that's there. One of the things that we're required to provide to the province is the list of attendees. So if any of you have a specific interest in any of these delegations and would like to join the warden, myself, Deputy CEO Randy will be there. There's one to health. No, sorry, I apologize. Ministry of Labor that Kevin McNabb will attend. But if any of you specifically want to join in a delegation, if you let me know, I'll make sure your name is actually put in on the request. They've been flexible, shall I say, the last few years, that should people decide on the day that they wish to attend, that's always possible as well. But it's always helpful if you can let them know ahead of time. So I'll leave that with you. We do have to do this by the end of the day today, though. So if you could let me know quickly, that would be super. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. Any notice of motion? Okay, not seeing one. Who wants to adjourn? Lunch, in fact, is here. Councillor McKay, Councillor DeBreen, all in favor? That is carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you and